So hi, my name's Leilani. I'm a product manager at Covalent, and I'm going to tell you how to build in Web3 using our unified API. So today, kind of the topics that we'll cover are a little bit of the current data challenges, because there are multiple ways to pull data from the blockchain, and it kind of depends on your use case, but I think there's definitely some common challenges that everyone's trying to solve. What is Covalent, the unified API? How to actually access on-chain data for some of your builds, and then just a bunch of resources and our bounty and demos and just like a whole bunch of stuff to get you started, basically. So at Covalent, we tend to think about the next couple years of the blockchain ecosystem, what it's all going to look like, particularly how this is all going to scale. Especially when it comes to data. So right now, there's a host of different applications, multiple blockchains, and pretty soon I think we're going to start seeing use cases like health data, government data, a lot more privacy blockchains, and in some cases, a lot of applications where you might not even know that it's on chain. And at that point, things require a lot of interoperability. If you've kind of interacted in this space, or you have different wallets, or you build applications on different chains, you might already realize some of the frictions and the challenges that happen when you try to do that. And especially when it comes to extracting data, which is what we focus on, it's all like kind of messy and it's in different formats. So we think that's a big problem to solve. So if you have run your own nodes before maybe, or built your own transformation engines, some of this stuff can be like pretty time consuming, complicated. Dating can be missing and delayed. We experience that on a daily basis, even as like a decent sized company, it's challenging. And then there's the question whether to build or buy. So this can be at an individual level if you're going to pay for like monthly plans for different services, or at a company level where you have a use case that maybe you want to build your own indexer, but you realize that can take like 6 months to a year or something to do it properly. So lots of challenges in data. That leads us to what is Covalent. Basically, we are a solution to access all on-chain data. And we do this currently across unofficially 50 different blockchains, officially 40. But if you want any of the like hidden chain IDs, you can just ask me afterwards. So what it is a single API, a unified API, which basically means that you can use the same tool, but just change parameters to switch from chain to chain. It's queryable from the cloud. You actually don't really need to be a developer to use it. Once I show you the docs and how we've kind of set it up, it's pretty user-friendly. You can try it live, and you can pull it in analyst mode, which means you get a CSV or like a spreadsheet that you can put into tools like Tableau or Power BI if you are an analyst, or if you're looking at building something that requires analytics, maybe for this hackathon. And the best thing about this API is that you can pretty much build a multi-chain application in minutes, because all you have to do is change that one parameter. So types of use cases with Covalent today, basically we crawl all the smart contracts on every single blockchain that we index. So we fully index the current and historical data, which means that the types of use cases are pretty endless. You can just kind of use any on-chain data that you want. You just have to know how to get it. So we have quite a few out-of-the-box endpoints for things like token balances, transactions, historical transactions, NFTs, but you can always go through the log events and you can get a little more granular. And we also have different developer tools like Primer that you could use to like specify your queries even more. But we see a lot of like DeFi dashboards, NFT galleries, crypto wallets, some DAO tools. So if you are like maybe not decided on what you're building, Covalent's always a pretty good bet, because you know that you'll be able to get some data for your project. I don't know if that's the use case or if people already have an idea, but just thought I'd mention it. So how does it work? Basically, we're kind of this data layer in between blockchains and nodes, and then the actual applications that people are using. So for developers, you don't always need to interact directly with the blockchain. We're a read-only API, so basically any data that you want to pull into your project, you don't need to necessarily be running your own nodes or paying for that to do it. You can just use our free API to pull all of that easily into your project and then support your applications. So the data layer we think is pretty essential to the crypto stack. It's also something that helps everyone scale, because you can build applications faster, basically, and easier. So that's the goal. And yeah, we see this supporting a lot more users on chain and a lot more applications that are interoperable as well, because if you've built your own kind of transformation engines in the past, then you either need to build that whole thing again for a different chain, or you need to make changes maybe in the pipeline that cause you to like reload all of that data. And with us, it's instant. So it's a lot easier to kind of be creative, make some quick changes, and build something different. So this is how it works. Basically, we run indexing nodes that take in all the data from different blockchains. Here's like a selection of some of them, but I'll show you our API reference, which shows you all the supported networks. And then we basically format them into a couple different classes of endpoints. So the most popular is class A endpoints. Those are basically just queries that you can make on any single chain that's supported. So questions like get token balances for this address. It returns all the balances for that address instead of querying it like token by token. It allows you to do your taxes. You can pull like NFT data. You can pull NFT metadata, so you can show up the images and the video URLs and all of that stuff. And then we have class B endpoints. I'll go into these like in the doc so you can actually see it. But class B endpoints are basically protocol specific. So we have one suite which is really popular, which is for DEX data. So basically most decentralized exchanges, or a lot of them, are clones of Uniswap. So like Spirit Swap, Stella Swap, Pancake Swap, all of the swaps. You can pull through those endpoints. You just have to change the DEX name in your query. And then we have something really exciting, which is actually testing internally right now, but we're bringing a couple people on that are interested in this to basically go through this process of building their own endpoints. So we realized our limitations with having these kind of like out-of-the-box, easy-to-use endpoints was that sometimes it's hard for people to make specific queries or support specific use cases or just access the data that we have, but it's not packaged. So Class C is going to be solving that, building those through SQL and then saving your own endpoints. And that's going to launch pretty soon, but it's working. So if anyone's really interested and has like a burning use case, talk to me afterwards. Yeah, here's like some of our users. Currently over 40,000 developers, which is a pretty big chunk of the ones in this space. I don't think all of those are active, but that's like the history to date. And yeah, we're powering a lot of wallet applications, some tax use cases. Currently, some like Web2 companies that are more interested in adding crypto features to their projects, so it's pretty cool. And then, yeah, basically support 50 blockchains. Again, you won't see every single one of those on the reference because some of them aren't QA'd, but you can unofficially support them if we haven't done a marketing launch. We had a hackathon guy from like ETH New York that built his whole project on a chain that wasn't exposed, but he knew that we supported it. So if you know the ID, then you're all good. Okay, so here's the bounty information. We're offering $5,000 for any projects that integrate the API in a meaningful way. So basically, we judge that on 3 points. One is like the feasibility or the quality of your use case. If it's actually like, new and solving something for somebody and it's interesting. And then 2 is the like complexity of the endpoints you use. So how many, the way that you integrate Covalent, how much basically, instead of just like copy paste, although you can use our code templates and copy paste, you just want to make some like stylistic changes maybe. And then 3 is just like the overall quality of the project. So things like design often stick out and stuff like that. So some ideas, and I'll show you some past examples as well because I think we have lots of time. NFT storefronts are great. On-chain analytics, really easy with Covalent. Wallets are always an easy use case. Anything tax related, you can get historical transactions, and we do have a pretty new way to like crawl historical transactions if you're looking at doing that at scale across any different chain. So I can walk you through that as well. Myself and my colleague Kia, who's here in the back, are going to be just walking around all day tomorrow. We're not at a booth, but we'll like show where we are in case you want to find us. Okay, so I'm going to open up the links. There's basically 3 primary resources. One is our knowledge base, so that has things like tutorials, how-to guides, example projects from past hackathons, so you can get like inspiration from that, as well as just like general API info. And the second is our API reference. That's where you can actually try all the endpoints live and see what the response looks like. And then 3 is our code template section. So we have a repo on GitHub now that has a bunch of different components, code-alongs, or anything that you can basically like fork and make some changes to. So it's an easy way to get started on a build as well. I think I'm gonna, basically go into those now. So here is our knowledge base. So this is the first link, the API docs. When you first go to it, it looks normal on here. So you get to this from our website, covalenthq.com/docs, and then you'll land on like the overview here. So it's gonna tell you everything that I just did. But you can also scroll further down, see some of our launch updates, our chain supported networks, and this is probably the most relevant section. So developer tools, you can go into some of the examples, how to use WebSocket connections for like notifications from log events. You can enable Covalent and Postman if you're familiar with working with that environment. You can learn about Primer, which is how to like further specify your queries. Or you can just go into any of the supported networks and learn a little bit more about those blockchains. So you can also go to the API reference from here, which is that second link, where you can actually try the endpoints live. So I kind of did it before just because I always get really paranoid about Wi-Fi at these things, but here's the class A endpoints. So the categories here, we kind of just bucketed them into common use cases. So balances, like token balances, if you want any sort of wallet use case and you need ERC20 transfers, change in token holders, anything like that, it's in balances. And then NFT use case, you can pull in, again, like all of the assets and the metadata that you need to build cool things. That was general. Transactions, so you can get a transaction and get really detailed logs, or you can get transactions for address and get all of the transactions for that address. And then base, so like get a block, get all the chains that we support, for instance. This will give you all the chain IDs. These are just kind of like your building blocks for anything you want to do. And then for those DEX endpoints that I mentioned, here's a whole bunch of them. So you can get all of the liquidity pools, all of the, basically all of the like DEX data that you might need, token pairs, their prices, all of that. So this is kind of like a sample response of what balances will give you. Again, I mentioned you put in a wallet address and it just gives you all of the different tokens that is held in that address, and it'll give you some with a balance of 0 as well, because we built this basically like a bank account. So if you've ever had that asset, it shows up. You might not have it right now, but it'll just give you everything. Because it's like a small window, I just pulled open the JSON and what you would get here. But basically, you just get all the tokens, which is a really efficient way to call it. And then now moving on to our Web3 resources. So this is our Web3 resources pack. I think I have a QR code on this next slide afterwards when I go back, so it's easier to find the link. But again, just feel free to ask me anytime. Also, if you like this, would love it if you start it. But basically, this has our templates, so you can make like a DEX dashboard. You can use all of that code and you can stylize it. You can make price trackers. You can make a mobile app. We have code-along videos, so depends kind of on your level. If you're a beginner, these can be really, really helpful, or if you're referring people into blockchain, it's also a good resource. And then we also have an integration with ThirdWeb, who are some great partners of ours too. And this will link you to the Web3 components library, so more things that you can use. So basically, we have a token balances component, a token transfers, and then a token holders. So these are what they look like. Basically, it works with ENS as well, which is always what I do because I hate copying addresses. So you can just put in like demo.eth, for example, or whatever your ENS name, and it'll show you all of your balances, as well as the logos, the type of the currency, the contract address. So pretty much build a wallet pretty easily out of that alone. And then you can integrate the ERC20 transfers that that address has had, and also like the token holders for each of those different tokens. So where are we? I think, whoops, there we go. Oh, past submissions. So while we have time, just because I thought it was cool, we do a lot of ETHGlobal hackathons, and sometimes I think it's cool to showcase what people have built or give others ideas. So these are a couple ones from ETH New York, which was a really great hackathon. So it'll just show you some like example projects. This one's called DAO Dash. So they basically used like our log events endpoint, went through to get really detailed DAO information, to see how much people are participating in the governance votes, for instance. And based on that, and based on people's on-chain involvement in a DAO, they could like grow these little trees and grow these little people. So it's like kind of like a Tamagotchi, but for DAO participation, which I thought was really cute. This one's Brent NFT. Loved the name on this one. It's awkward if these people are here and I'm like shouting out their projects, but this one basically allowed you to lend an NFT. So sometimes events are like token gated, for instance, or there's other perks that you get by being a holder, but you might not want to buy that specific NFT, or it might cost, you know, like $100,000. So what you can do is actually like rent them. This was an integration using our data to display all the front end, and then with Gnosis as well, where you could basically, yeah, like rent it for 24 hours, get into whatever you want to do, and then give it back, which I thought was cool. Block Stories was a really good kind of like front end overlay with our data. So there's a big problem of like human readable data in blockchain. A lot of it's just really confusing. The terminology is quite a steep learning curve. So Block Stories built this using our transactions endpoint, where you could go in, basically like open source, add information to a transaction to make that a little bit more meaningful in the chain. So you could go and search and find that this person sold this to this person, and it's written in like words. You can see the most traded punk, for instance, or other things like that. I'm kind of doing them a disservice by like describing it all very slowly, but just thought it was cool. And then this one, this was awesome. This was actually an ETH New York finalist. Oh, Wi-Fi, there we go. So they basically built like a simulator that you could add to MetaMask that would show you whether or not a transaction was fraudulent or dangerous. This is also a pretty big problem because blockchain transactions are super permanent. So you can send money to a burn address, for instance, and never get it back. So SafeNode, basically, you just attach it to MetaMask. It simulates the transaction, shows you like dangerous addresses that might have interacted with mixers before, or anything like that. So they used our data to simulate that. I can always go through like other submissions if you want to find me tomorrow, but that's our developer resources. Hopefully the QR code is big enough. I also realized I'm not full screen, so there we go. So that'll take you to the GitHub library that has all of those components and stuff. But from there, there's also links to the website. I'll leave it for like a couple more seconds. And then, thank you. That's all. If you have any questions, let me know, or find me walking around afterwards.